Somebody's gonna have to...
What happens when ancient gods clash, mythical beasts rise, and immortal dares to defy destiny? Today on Cinema Reviews, we dive into Clash of the Titans, 2010, a film packed with epic battles, legendary creatures, and behind-the-scenes facts you probably didn't know. Clash of the Titans is a 2010 action fantasy movie and a remake of the 1981 film with the same name. The original film was produced by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, and Warner Brothers got the rights to it in 1996 when they bought Turner. The story is very loosely inspired by the Greek myth of Perseus. This movie is an Australian-American production, directed by Louis Leterrier with a screenplay written by Travis Basham, Phil Hay, and Matt Manfredi. It stars Sam Worthington, Gemma Arterton, Mads Mikkelsen, Alexa Davalos, Ralph Fiennes, and Liam Neeson. The film was first planned to be released in standard format on March 26, 2010. However, later it was announced that it would be converted into 3D, and it was finally released on April 2, 2010. Clash of the Titans became a commercial hit, earning $493 million worldwide and ranking as one of the top-grossing films of 2010. Even though it performed very well at the box office, critics gave it mostly mixed to negative reviews. The movie was praised for its epic scale, visual effects, and the acting of Liam Neeson, Ralph Fiennes, and Gemma Arterton. But it was also criticized for Louis Leterrier's direction, Sam Worthington's performance, and the rushed 3D conversion done after filming. Because of its success, a sequel was made called Wrath of the Titans, which came out in March 2012. Cast and crew. The casting process for the 2010 remake of Clash of the Titans, directed by Louis Leterrier, involved a blend of rising stars, established veterans, and strategic choices to modernize the Greek mythology epic. Sam Worthington was selected for the lead role of Perseus, the demigod son of Zeus tasked with saving humanity from divine wrath. Worthington, an Australian actor born in 1976, had been gaining momentum in Hollywood prior to this film. His breakthrough came with roles in independent Australian films like Somersault in 2004, where he portrayed a troubled young man, showcasing the emotional depth that caught Leterrier's attention. Leterrier revealed in an on-set interview that he wasn't initially aware of Worthington's rising buzz in Hollywood but was impressed by his humility and ideas during their meeting. The director noted that Worthington's inherently darker persona shifted the character's arc from the wide-eyed innocence of Harry Hamlin's portrayal in the 1981 original to a more brooding, reluctant hero. This choice aligned with the remake's aim to ground the fantasy in gritty realism, emphasizing Perseus's human struggles over mythical grandeur. Worthington's involvement went beyond acting. He actively influenced script changes to make the story more contemporary and less reliant on traditional heroic tropes, pushing for a narrative that questioned the god's authority rather than blindly revering it. To prepare for the role, Worthington underwent intense physical training, focusing on sword fighting and stunt work. As the film demanded numerous action sequences, he opted for practical footwear modifications, painting toes on his sports shoes to facilitate better movement during stunts, a detail that highlighted his practical approach to the character's demigod agility. His performance was met with mixed reviews. Some critics praised his stoic intensity as fitting for a battle-hardened warrior, while others felt it lacked the charisma needed to anchor the epic. Nonetheless, Worthington's casting marked a turning point in his career, solidifying him as an action star capable of carrying big-budget franchises. Liam Neeson took on the role of Zeus, the king of the gods, bringing his commanding presence to the divine patriarch. Neeson, born in 1952 in Northern Ireland, had established himself as a versatile actor with roles in historical dramas like Schindler's List, 1993, and action thrillers like Taken, 2008. His selection for Zeus was driven by the need for an actor who could convey authority and gravitas without resorting to caricature. Leterrier emphasized keeping Neeson involved in the creative process, sending him early concept drawings and assuring him that the god's attire would avoid cliché-tilde copyright togas, instead opting for molded armor from raw earth and metal to symbolize their otherworldly power. This design choice helped Neeson embrace the role, allowing him to focus on Zeus's internal conflicts, such as his strained relationship with Hades. Neeson's preparation included studying Greek mythology to infuse authenticity, though he adapted it to fit the film's modern tone. On set, Neeson mentored younger cast members, and his scenes with Ralph Fiennes as Hades were highlighted for their intense chemistry, drawing from their previous collaboration in Schindler's List. Critics often cited Neeson's performance as a highlight, praising his booming voice and regal demeanor, which elevated the film's mythological elements. His casting also added box office appeal, leveraging his post-Taken action hero status to attract audiences. Ralph Fiennes portrayed Hades, the god of the underworld, in a role that allowed him to explore villainy with nuance. Fiennes, born in 1962 in England, was known for his intense performances in films like The English Patient, 1996, and as Voldemort in the Harry Potter series. Leterrier approached Fiennes with the same assurances as Neeson in Otogasa and involved him in developing Hades's visual and emotional layers, emphasizing a scarred, vengeful figure rather than a one-dimensional antagonist. Fiennes drew inspiration from classical depictions but infused the character with psychological depth, portraying Hades as a betrayed brother seeking retribution. His physical transformation, including pale makeup and flowing robes, required hours in the chair, and he worked closely with the visual effects team to integrate his performance with CGI elements like the underworld's creatures. Interviews revealed Fiennes's enthusiasm for the role's Shakespearean undertones, comparing Hades's monologues to those in classical tragedy. The dynamic between Fiennes and Neeson was a casting coup, their real-life respect translating into on-screen tension that critics lauded as one of the film's strongest aspects. Fiennes's casting brought a layer of sophistication to the blockbuster, balancing spectacle with dramatic weight. Gemma Arterton was cast as Io, the immortal guide and love interest to Perseus, adding a feminine strength to the narrative. Arterton, born in 1986 in England, was an up-and-coming actress with roles in Quantum of Solace, 2008, and Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time, 2010. Her selection stemmed from her ability to convey ethereal beauty and resilience, qualities Leterrier sought to update the character's role from the original film. Arterton auditioned multiple times, impressing with her chemistry read alongside Worthington. She prepared by researching mythological figures like Io, who in lore is transformed into a cow by Zeus, but the film reimagined her as a cursed immortal. On set, Arterton performed many of her own stunts, including horseback riding and fight scenes, to embody Io's warrior spirit. Letrier noted her collaborative nature, similar to Worthington's, in shaping Io's arc to be more empowered. Reviews praised Arterton's performance for bringing warmth and depth to an otherwise effects-heavy film, though some felt the romance subplot was underdeveloped. Her casting reflected the film's effort to include strong female characters in a genre often dominated by male heroes. Alexa Davalos played Princess Andromeda, the sacrificial maiden whose fate drives much of the plot. Davalos, born in 1982 in France to American parents, had appeared in television series like Angel and films like The Chronicles of Riddick, 2004. Her casting was based on her regal poise and ability to portray vulnerability without weakness, essential for Andromeda's role as a symbol of human defiance against the gods. Davalos spoke in interviews about the physical demands, including being chained to rocks for scenes involving the Kraken, requiring endurance in harsh filming conditions in Tenerife. She worked with dialect coaches to adopt a period-appropriate accent, blending classical and modern elements. The director highlighted her chemistry with the ensemble, particularly in scenes with her on-screen parents. While Andromeda's role was more passive than some counterparts, Davalos infused it with quiet strength, earning positive nods from critics for elevating the character's emotional stakes. Her involvement added international flavor to the cast, drawing from her multicultural background. Jason Fleming embodied the dual role of King Acrisius and Calibos, the deformed antagonist cursed by Zeus. Fleming, born in 1966 in England, was a character actor known for collaborations with Guy Ritchie in films like Clock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, 1998, and Snatch, 2000. His casting was a nod to his versatility in playing both regal and monstrous figures, with extensive prosthetics transforming him into Calibos. Letrier praised Fleming's willingness to endure long makeup sessions, which could take up to 6 hours, to create the character's grotesque appearance. Fleming drew from Shakespearean villains like Richard III for Calibos's limp and bitterness, adding layers to what could have been a stock monster. On-set anecdotes include his interactions with Worthington during fight scenes, where practical effects blended with CGI. Critics appreciated Fleming's commitment, noting how his performance humanized the villain, making Calibos a tragic figure rather than pure evil. This role showcased Fleming's range, bridging human drama and fantasy horror. Mads Mikkelsen was chosen for Draco, the seasoned warrior leading Perseus's band of fighters. Mikkelsen, born in 1965 in Denmark, had gained recognition for his role as Lucifer in Casino Royale, 2006, and Danish films like Pusher, 1996. His casting brought a European edge to the ensemble, with Letrier seeking an actor who could convey stoic leadership and physical prowess. Mikkelsen prepared by training in ancient combat techniques, emphasizing Draco's no-nonsense mentality. In interviews, he discussed the camaraderie among the warrior cast, including improvising dialogue to build team dynamics. His performance was highlighted for its intensity, particularly in the scorpion fight sequence, where practical stunts amplified the action. Critics often cited Mikkelsen as a standout in the supporting cast, his gravitas adding weight to the human elements amid godly conflicts. The role further established Mikkelsen as a go-to for complex, brooding characters in Hollywood. Danny Huston portrayed Poseidon, the god of the seas, in a supporting divine role. Huston, born in 1962 in Italy to director Job Huston, had a lineage in film with roles in The Aviator, 2004, and Children of Men, 2006. His casting was influenced by his ability to project quiet authority, contrasting with the more flamboyant Zeus and Hades. Huston appeared in throne room scenes, contributing to the gods' council dynamics. He mentioned in production notes the challenge of balancing mythological accuracy with the film's creative liberties, such as Poseidon's involvement in the Kraken's release. His performance, though brief, added depth to the Olympian pantheon, with critics noting his understated menace. Huston's involvement was part of the film's strategy to populate the gods with respected actors for credibility. Natalia Vodianova played Medusa, the Gorgon whose gaze turns men to stone. Vodianova, born in 1982 in Russia, was primarily a supermodel with limited acting experience, making her casting a bold choice for the iconic creature. Lee Trier selected her for her striking beauty, which was twisted through CGI and makeup into Medusa's serpentine form. Vodianova underwent motion capture sessions to capture her movements, blending live action with digital effects. She spoke about the role's physicality, including slithering on set with a tail rig. The performance was praised for its eerie elegance, though some critics felt the character's screen time was limited. Vodianova's casting highlighted the film's use of non-traditional actors for mythical beings, adding visual allure. Liam Cunningham was cast as Solon, a cynical warrior in Perseus's group. Cunningham, born in 1961 in Ireland, was known for roles in Dog Soldiers, 2002, and Game of Thrones, later in 2012. His selection brought humor and grit to the ensemble, with Lee Trier appreciating his everyman appeal. Cunningham prepared by focusing on Solon's skepticism toward the gods, improvising lines to enhance the character's sarcasm. His interactions with Michelson and Worthington formed the heart of the warrior's banter, providing comic relief in tense scenes. Reviews commended Cunningham for stealing scenes with his dry wit, contributing to the film's human scale. Hans Matheson played Ixes, another member of the warrior band. Matheson, born in 1975 in Scotland, had appeared in Les Mis copyright labels, 1998, and Sherlock Holmes, 2009. His casting added youth and idealism to the group, contrasting with older veterans. Matheson trained extensively in archery and swordplay, emphasizing Ixes' loyalty. His performance was solid, though understated, supporting the ensemble without overshadowing leads. Nicholas Hoult portrayed Eusebius, the young, eager fighter. Hoult, born in 1989 in England, was transitioning from child roles in About a Boy, 2002, to more mature parts. His casting reflected the film's mix of generations, with Hoult bringing wide-eyed enthusiasm. He discussed in interviews the thrill of working with veterans like Neeson. Learning on set, Hoult's role involved stunt work, and his performance was noted for its freshness amid the epic scope. Ashraf Bahram was selected for Osil, a desert bandit joining the quest. Bahram, born in 1979 in Israel, had roles in The Kingdom, 2007. His casting added cultural diversity, with Osil providing comic relief through his thieving ways. Bahram prepared by studying Bedouin traditions, infusing authenticity. Critics appreciated his energetic performance, enhancing the group's dynamics. Moulay Aker played Kukuk, Osil's companion. Aker, a French actor and journalist, brought levity to the role. His casting was part of the film's international flavor, with limited but memorable scenes. Ian White portrayed Sheikh Suleiman, the jinn leader. White, born in 1971 in Wales, was known for creature roles in Prometheus, 2012. Due to his 7-foot height, his casting utilized his stature for the wooden-skinned jinn, involving prosthetics and CGI. White's performance relied on motion capture, conveying alien wisdom. Luke Treadaway was cast as Procopian, a zealot priest. Treadaway, born in 1984 in England, had stage experience. His role involved fanaticism, contrasting the warrior's pragmatism. Treadaway's intense delivery was praised in reviews. Ross Mullen, Robin Berry, and Graham Hughes played the Stygian witches, the prophetic hags. These actors, with backgrounds in theater and effects work, used heavy makeup to create the grotesque trio. Their casting focused on vocal and physical eccentricity, with scenes relying on practical effects for eerie impact. Pete Postlethwaite portrayed Spyros, Perseus's adoptive father. Postlethwaite, born in 1946 in England, was a respected character actor in the Name of the Father, 1993. His casting added emotional grounding, with Spyros's death catalyzing the plot. Postlethwaite's heartfelt performance was a poignant highlight. His final scenes filmed shortly before his passing in 2011. Elizabeth McGovern played Marmara, Perseus's adoptive mother. McGovern, born in 1961 in the U.S., known for Downton Abbey, 2010, brought maternal warmth. Her brief role emphasized family themes, with critics noting her subtle emoting. Vincent Regan was cast as King Perseus, Andromeda's father. Regan, born in 1965 in Wales, had roles in 300, 2006. His selection fit the royal archetype, with Perseus's hubris driving conflict. Regan's commanding presence suited the character's tragic arc. Polly Walker portrayed Queen Cassiopeia, whose boast incites the god's anger. Walker, born in 1966 in England, known for Rome, 2005, infused the role with haughty elegance. Her casting drew from her experience in period dramas, adding sophistication. Rory McCann played Bello, a guard. McCann, born in 1969 in Scotland, later famous for Game of Thrones, brought physicality. His role was minor but impactful in action scenes. Martin McCann was Phaedrus, another warrior. McCann, born in 1983 in Northern Ireland, added to the Irish contingent. His performance supported the group dynamics. Kaya Scodelario played Beshet, a handmaiden. Scodelario, born in 1992 in England, was emerging from Skins, 2007. Her casting introduced youth, with limited but graceful scenes. Luke Evans portrayed Apollo, the god of light. Evans, born in 1979 in Wales, was rising with this role. His casting emphasized Apollo's youthful vigor, contrasting elder gods. Isabella Myko played Athena, goddess of wisdom. Myko, born in 1981 in Poland, brought ethereal quality. Her brief appearance utilized her dance background for grace. Aeginus Dean was Aphrodite, goddess of love. Dean, a model born in 1983 in England, similar to Vodianova, was chosen for beauty, with minimal dialogue. Tamer Hassan portrayed Ares, god of war. Hassan, born in 1968 in England, added menace with his tough guy persona. Alexander Siddig played Hermes, messenger god. Siddig, born in 1965 in Sudan, known for Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, brought wit to the role. The casting extended to numerous uncredited and minor roles, including stunt performers doubling for leads in intense sequences. For instance, extras portrayed soldiers, villagers, and mythical creatures, with casting directors Lucinda Sisson and Elaine Granger focusing on diverse backgrounds to populate the ancient world. The process involved global auditions, prioritizing physical fitness for the film's demanding action. Lee Trier's collaborative style encouraged input from all, fostering a cohesive ensemble. Production notes highlight challenges like coordinating schedules for high-profile actors, with reshoots accommodating changes. The Gods cast, in particular, was designed to evoke a family dynamic, with Neeson and Phaedrus anchoring the divine intrigue. Supporting warriors were selected for chemistry, with group readings ensuring banter flowed naturally. Female roles, though fewer, were empowered in the remake, reflecting evolving genre norms. Overall, the casting blended star power with fresh talent, aiming to refresh the myth for contemporary audiences while honoring its roots. The production of Clash of the Titans, 2010, represents a complex journey that spanned nearly a decade, from its initial conception to its final theatrical release. The project serves as a prime example of how Hollywood blockbusters evolve through multiple iterations, creative teams, and technological advances before reaching audiences worldwide. Development and pre-production. The journey to remake the 1981 Ray Harryhausen classic began in 2002. Marking the start of what would become an 8-year development process. The initial vision came from producer Adam Schroeder and writers John Glenn and Travis Wright, who approached the project with a clear mandate to modernize the source material. Their primary objective was to eliminate what they perceived as the cheesy chessboard manipulation of characters by the gods that characterized the original film. This early creative decision established the tone for all subsequent versions of the script, emphasizing a more grounded, unrealistic approach to the mythological subject matter. Wright and Glenn conceptualized their adaptation as an adventure film with religious elements, suggesting an intention to ground the fantastical elements in more contemporary storytelling sensibilities. However, like many Hollywood projects, the initial development phase stalled, and the project remained dormant for several years as the industry underwent significant changes in both technology and audience expectations. The project experienced a renaissance in 2006 when producer Basil Iwanek revived it with a fresh perspective. Iwanek brought in Travis Basham, a screenwriter who was both a fan of the original film and possessed a deep understanding of mythological storytelling. Basham's approach marked a significant shift in the project's direction, as he intended the script to be darker and more realistic than previous iterations. This creative decision aligned with the broader trend in Hollywood toward grittier, more psychologically complex blockbuster entertainment that had gained prominence following the success of films like Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. Basham's involvement proved crucial in establishing the thematic foundation that would persist through subsequent rewrites. His script retained the basic narrative structure of Perseus's journey while infusing it with contemporary concerns about power, responsibility, and the relationships between mortals and divine authority. The darker tone Basham implemented reflected a post-9/11 sensibility that questioned traditional authority structures and explored themes of rebellion against seemingly omnipotent forces. In 2007, the project attracted high-profile talent when Lawrence Kasdan, the acclaimed writer of The Empire Strikes Back and Raiders of the Lost Ark, joined to provide another rewrite of Basham's script. Kasdan's involvement signaled Warner Bros.' commitment to elevating the material beyond typical fantasy fare. Simultaneously, director Stephen Norrington, known for his work on Blade, signed on to helm the project. Kasdan's rewrite attempted to balance the darker elements Basham had introduced with more accessible adventure movie conventions, creating a screenplay that could appeal to both adult audiences seeking sophisticated storytelling and younger viewers drawn to spectacular action sequences. However, Norrington's attachment to the project proved problematic. Despite his technical proficiency and experience with genre material, Norrington expressed uncertainty about his creative direction for A Clash of the Titans. His unfamiliarity with the original 1981 film created a disconnect between his vision and the project's foundational elements. This creative uncertainty became increasingly apparent as pre-production progressed, leading to growing concerns about the project's viability under his direction. The turning point came when Louis Leterrier, fresh from directing The Incredible Hulk, expressed interest in the project. Unlike Norrington, Leterrier possessed both personal affection for the original film and a clear creative vision for the remake. His previous work had demonstrated an ability to balance large-scale action sequences with character development, making him an ideal candidate for the demanding requirements of a mythology-based blockbuster. Leterrier contacted Norrington through their shared agent, and the transition occurred smoothly, with Warner Bros. Recognizing that Leterrier's enthusiasm and vision aligned better with their commercial and creative objectives. By June 2008, Leterrier's involvement was officially confirmed, and Warner Bros. greenlit the film for production. Leterrier's attachment marked a crucial moment in the project's development, as his unique perspective and the source material informed all subsequent creative decisions. The director had noted that the original Clash of the Titans directly inspired the climax of The Incredible Hulk, specifically the battle sequence in a burnt-down courtroom featuring temple-like columns. This connection demonstrated Leterrier's deep appreciation for mythological storytelling and its influence on contemporary superhero narratives. Leterrier's creative philosophy extended beyond mere visual homage to encompass a broader understanding of mythology's role in modern entertainment. He frequently compared modern superheroes to figures from Greek mythology, recognizing the archetypal patterns that connect ancient stories to contemporary pop culture. This perspective informed his approach to Clash of the Titans, as he sought to create a film that honored both the classical source material and modern audience expectations. The script underwent another significant revision during July 2008 when writers Phil Hay and Matt Manfredi took over the project. Working with Basham's draft as their foundation, Hay and Manfredi faced the challenging task of completing their rewrite in less than a year using what they described as a very active process. Their approach focused heavily on the mythological elements while ensuring the story reflected Leterrier's specific creative vision. The collaborative process between Leterrier and the writing team proved intensive and iterative. They conducted extensive research into Greek mythology, seeking to balance authenticity with commercial appeal. The writers worked to maintain the darker tone established by earlier drafts while incorporating Leterrier's emphasis on spectacular visual storytelling. This balance required careful attention to character development, ensuring that the human elements of the story remained compelling despite the fantastic setting and elaborate special effects sequences. During this development phase, Leterrier actively sought input from Ray Harryhausen, the legendary stop-motion animator who had created the memorable creatures for the original film. Although Harryhausen's direct involvement remained limited, his consultation provided valuable insight into the creative challenges of bringing mythological creatures to life on screen. Leterrier's respect for Harryhausen's work influenced the film's approach to creature design and practical effects, even as the production relied heavily on computer-generated imagery. The pre-production phase also saw the reunion of Leterrier with Aaron Sims, the concept artist who had contributed to The Incredible Hulk. Sims had already begun working on Clash of the Titans during Norrington's tenure, providing valuable continuity as the project transitioned between directors. His creature designs and conceptual artwork helped establish the visual language that would define the film's mythological world. An interesting cultural influence emerged during development when Leterrier revealed his appreciation for Masami Kurumada's Saint Seiya manga series, also known as Knights of the Zodiac. This Japanese influence manifested in the armor designs worn by the gods in the film, representing Leterrier's desire to incorporate diverse mythological traditions into the project. Kurumada was even invited to collaborate with the production team on poster designs, demonstrating the international scope of the creative process. The development process established several key creative principles that would guide the production. First, the film would emphasize practical action and stunt work wherever possible, with computer-generated effects serving to enhance rather than replace physical performance. Second, the mythology would be treated with respect while being adapted for contemporary sensibilities. Third, the visual design would draw from multiple cultural traditions to create a unique aesthetic that honored the source material while establishing its own identity. As pre-production concluded, the creative team had assembled a comprehensive vision for Clash of the Titans that balanced commercial appeal with artistic ambition. The lengthy development process, while sometimes frustrating for the various parties involved, ultimately resulted in a more refined and thoughtful approach to the source material. The involvement of multiple writers and directors had created layers of creative input that enriched the final screenplay, while Leterrier's leadership provided the focused vision necessary to transform diverse elements into a cohesive whole. The pre-production phase also established the film's budget parameters and technical requirements. Warner Bros. Committed to a substantial investment in the project, recognizing its potential as a tentpole release that could anchor their 2010 slate. The studio's financial commitment enabled the production team to pursue ambitious visual effects sequences and international filming locations that would enhance the epic scope of the story. Casting became a crucial element of pre-production, as the success of a mythology-based film depends heavily on actors who can convincingly portray both human vulnerability and heroic determination. The casting process sought performers who could handle the physical demands of the role while bringing emotional depth to characters rooted in ancient storytelling traditions. This balance between physical capability and dramatic skill would prove essential to the film's ultimate reception. Filming the principal photography for Clash of the Titans commenced on April 27, 2009, marking the beginning of an ambitious international production that would span multiple countries and diverse landscapes. The filming process represented a logistical achievement in coordinating locations, cast, crew, and complex technical requirements across various international boundaries. The primary production hub was established in the United Kingdom, taking advantage of the country's advanced film production infrastructure and experienced crew base. Shepperton Studios served as the main facility, providing controlled environments for interior sequences and complex special effects work. The choice of Shepperton reflected both practical and creative considerations, as the facility offered the space and technical capabilities necessary for large-scale productions while maintaining proximity to London's extensive pool of skilled technicians and support services. Additional studio work was conducted at Pinewood Studios and Longcross Studios, both located near Chertsey and Surrey. This multi-studio approach allowed the production to maximize efficiency by utilizing different facilities for specific types of sequences. Pinewood's legendary history with large-scale productions provided additional credibility and resources, while Longcross offered more modern facilities optimized for contemporary filming techniques. The decision to base production in the UK also reflected economic considerations, as the country's film tax incentive programs and favorable exchange rates made it an attractive location for Hollywood productions. The local crew base possessed extensive experience with fantasy and action films, having worked on numerous high-profile projects that required similar technical expertise and creative problem-solving abilities. Beyond the controlled studio environments, the production embarked on an extensive international location shooting schedule that would provide the epic scope necessary for the mythological setting. Wales served as a primary location for several key sequences, offering dramatic landscapes that could convincingly represent the ancient world. The Welsh locations provided both practical advantages and visual authenticity, as the country's rugged terrain and historic architecture created believable settings for the story's mythological elements. The Canary Islands emerged as perhaps the most significant international filming location, with extensive work conducted across multiple islands in the Spanish archipelago. The production team recognized that the Canary Islands offered unique geological features that could represent the otherworldly landscapes described in Greek mythology. Tenerife became a primary location, with significant filming taking place at Tide National Park, a UNESCO World Heritage Site that provided spectacular volcanic landscapes. The choice of Tide National Park reflected the production's commitment to visual authenticity and epic scale. The park's unique volcanic formations, created over millions of years of geological activity, provided natural settings that no studio could replicate. The otherworldly appearance of the landscape aligned perfectly with the film's mythological themes, suggesting realms that existed beyond normal human experience. The production team worked closely with Spanish authorities to ensure that filming activities respected the environmental and cultural significance of the protected area. Maspalomas Dunes in Gran Canaria provided another distinctive location, offering desert-like landscapes that could represent various mythological realms. The vast sand formations created dramatic backdrops for action sequences while providing practical advantages for filming large-scale scenes with multiple actors and equipment. The natural lighting conditions in the Canary Islands also proved advantageous, offering consistent illumination that enhanced the visual consistency of outdoor sequences. Lanzarote's Timanfaya National Park provided additional volcanic landscapes, further expanding the range of mythological environments available to the production. The unique geological features of each island allowed the filmmakers to create distinct visual identities for different story locations while maintaining overall aesthetic coherence. The international scope of the location shooting also provided opportunities to incorporate local talent and resources, enriching the production's cultural authenticity. Aerial photography conducted in Iceland and Ethiopia extended the international reach of the production even further. These locations provided establishing shots and background elements that enhanced the epic scope of the narrative. Iceland's dramatic landscapes, forged by volcanic activity and glacial movement, offered visuals that complemented the mythological themes while providing practical footage for compositing with studio shot sequences. Ethiopia's unique terrain provided additional exotic backdrops that suggested the vast, mysterious world inhabited by gods and monsters. One of the most memorable location shoots took place at Dino Urich Slate Quarry in Wales, where the production filmed crucial volcano scenes at the Harriet Hole. The quarry, which had previously served as a location for Willow and Street Fighter, provided dramatic industrial landscapes that could be transformed into mythological settings. The Slate Quarry's massive scale and unusual geological features created practical environments that enhanced the realism of fantastical sequences. The filming at Dino Urich concluded as the end of July 2009. Marking the completion of a challenging location shoot that had required extensive logistical coordination. The quarry's remote location and challenging terrain had demanded careful planning and specialized equipment, but the resulting footage provided authentic textures and lighting that could not be achieved in studio environments. Throughout the filming process, the production team faced numerous practical challenges related to the international scope of the project. Coordinating equipment, personnel, and schedules across multiple countries required sophisticated planning and constant communication. The varying weather conditions, regulatory requirements, and logistical constraints of different locations demanded flexibility and creative problem-solving from all departments. Sam Worthington's commitment to physical authenticity became a notable aspect of the filming process. Rather than wearing traditional sandals that might compromise his ability to perform stunts safely, Worthington painted toes on his sports shoes to maintain the appearance of ancient footwear while ensuring maximum performance capability. This practical solution exemplified the production's approach to balancing visual authenticity with practical filmmaking requirements. The international cast and crew brought diverse perspectives and expertise to the production, creating a collaborative environment that enriched the creative process. The combination of Hollywood production values, British technical expertise, and international location resources created a unique filmmaking environment that reflected the global scope of the mythological source material. An amusing incident during filming involved Emma Thompson, who nearly made an accidental uncredited cameo while visiting her friend Liam Neeson on set. Thompson, who had been filming Nanny McPhee in The Big Bang in an adjacent studio, visited Neeson during a break just as he was about to shoot a scene with Ralph Fiennes and Danny Houston. Unable to exit quickly enough as cameras began rolling, Thompson had to hide behind Houston's throne in her Nanny McPhee costume to avoid being captured on film. This incident exemplified the friendly, collaborative atmosphere that characterized the production despite its large scale and commercial pressure. The filming schedule required careful coordination between location shooting and studio work, as many sequences combined practical elements with extensive digital effects. The production team worked closely with visual effects supervisors to ensure that location footage would integrate seamlessly with computer-generated elements added during post-production. This planning phase required detailed technical specifications and extensive documentation to ensure consistency across all phases of production. The international filming schedule also provided opportunities to showcase the production's economic impact across multiple regions. Local communities in Wales, Spain, Iceland, and Ethiopia benefited from the production's presence through employment opportunities, equipment rentals, and related services. This economic activity demonstrated the global reach of contemporary Hollywood productions and their ability to generate positive economic effects across diverse international markets. Post-production. The post-production phase of Clash of the Titans represented one of the most significant and controversial aspects of the entire production process. This period, which extended well beyond the completion of principal photography, involved extensive visual effects work, sound design, musical composition, and ultimately, a controversial decision to convert the film to 3D that would significantly impact both the production timeline and the film's eventual reception. The visual effects work began even before filming concluded, as the production team recognized the extensive digital work required to bring the mythological creatures and environments to life. The film's ambitious scope demanded seamless integration between practical elements shot on location and in studios with computer-generated imagery that would create the fantastical world of Greek mythology. This integration required unprecedented coordination between different departments and vendors working across multiple time zones and production facilities. The creature design process represented a particularly complex aspect of post-production, as each mythological being required unique characteristics that would be both faithful to classical sources and visually compelling for contemporary audiences. The Kraken, serving as the film's primary antagonist, demanded especially sophisticated design work that would create a creature capable of inspiring genuine terror while maintaining believability within the film's established visual parameters. The design process involved extensive concept art, digital modeling, texture work, and animation testing to achieve the desired result. Medusa's creation posed unique challenges, as the character required a design that would be both beautiful and terrifying, reflecting the classical description of a creature whose very appearance could turn viewers to stone. The post-production team worked extensively on the character's snake hair, developing animation systems that could create realistic serpentine movement while maintaining the overall aesthetic coherence of the character design. The complexity of this work required months of refinement and testing to achieve the final result. The film's extensive action sequences demanded sophisticated digital effects work that could enhance the practical stunts and locations shot during principal photography. The scorpion battle sequence, in particular, required extensive digital creature work combined with practical effects and stunt coordination. Each scorpion needed to be individually animated with realistic movement patterns while interacting convincingly with the human performers and physical environment. Environmental effects represented another major component of the post-production work, as many of the film's locations required digital enhancement to achieve the epic scale envisioned by the creative team. The volcanic landscapes shot in the Canary Islands were augmented with digital elements that expanded their scope and intensity, creating otherworldly environments that could convincingly represent the realms of gods and monsters. These environmental effects required careful attention to lighting, atmospheric effects, and visual consistency to maintain immersion throughout the film. The sound design process proved equally complex, as the film required audio landscapes that could support both intimate character moments and spectacular action sequences. The mythological setting demanded sounds that had no real-world equivalent, requiring creative sound designers to develop original audio elements for creatures, magical effects, and divine interventions. The Kraken's vocalizations, in particular, required extensive experimentation to create sounds that would convey the creature's massive scale and terrifying nature. Music composition became a crucial element of post-production, as the film needed a musical score that could support its epic scope while providing emotional depth for character development. The composer worked closely with the director to develop musical themes that could represent different aspects of the mythological world, from the majesty of the gods to the heroic journey of Perseus. The orchestral score required extensive recording sessions with full orchestras and careful integration with the film's sound effects and dialogue. However, the most controversial aspect of post-production emerged with the decision to convert the film to 3D technology. This decision, made relatively late in the production process, would have profound implications for both the film's visual presentation and its critical reception. The conversion process required extensive additional work and represented a significant departure from the original creative vision established during development and filming. Letrier had initially approached the studio early in the process about the possibility of 3D conversion, but the technology was expensive and relatively new at the time. The success of James Cameron's Avatar in late 2009 dramatically changed the industry's perspective on 3D technology, creating pressure from Warner Bros. To convert Clash of the Titans to capitalize on the growing 3D market. The studio's enthusiasm for the format reflected both commercial considerations and a desire to enhance the film's visual spectacle. Despite initial concerns about the conversion process, Letrier was ultimately convinced after seeing demonstrations of the VUD conversion technology. He initially considered the 3D conversion as a way to improve the viewing experience rather than merely a commercial gimmick. The conversion process required extensive additional work during post-production, as each frame of the film had to be analyzed and processed to create convincing depth effects. The 3D conversion timeline created significant pressure on the post-production schedule, as the technology required careful attention to detail to avoid the artifacts and visual problems that could result from rushed conversion work. The decision to pursue 3D almost required adjustments to the film's original release date, pushing the premiere from March 26, 2010, to April 2, 2010. To allow sufficient time for the conversion process. The conversion work involved sophisticated computer analysis of each frame to determine depth relationships between different visual elements. This process required manual adjustment and refinement to ensure that the 3D effects enhanced rather than distracted from the storytelling. The complexity of the work varied significantly depending on the nature of each shot, with action sequences and effects-heavy scenes requiring particularly intensive attention. The post-production team worked closely with a 3D conversion specialists to ensure that the depth effects complemented the film's visual design and pacing. This collaboration required extensive testing and revision, as the 3D effects could significantly alter the viewing experience and impact the effectiveness of individual scenes. The team paid particular attention to ensuring that the conversion work did not interfere with the practical effects and stunt work that had been carefully coordinated during filming. Color correction and digital intermediate work represented another crucial aspect of post-production, as the film's diverse shooting locations and varying lighting conditions required careful balancing to maintain visual consistency. The international scope of the filming had created footage with different color temperatures and exposure characteristics that needed to be harmonized during post-production. This work required extensive technical expertise and artistic judgment to achieve the desired visual aesthetic. The editing process itself proved complex, as the film's epic scope and multiple storylines required careful pacing and structure to maintain audience engagement throughout the extended runtime. The editor worked closely with Lee Trier to refine the narrative flow, ensuring that character development moments balanced effectively with action sequences and that the mythological elements remained accessible to contemporary audiences. Marketing materials and trailers were prepared during post-production, requiring careful selection of footage that would generate audience interest without revealing key plot points or spoiling major visual surprises. The marketing team worked with editors to create promotional materials that captured the film's epic scope and spectacular visual effects while maintaining narrative mystery. The post-production process also involved extensive quality control testing, as the film's technical complexity required verification across multiple viewing formats and presentation systems. The team conducted screenings in various formats to ensure that the visual and audio elements worked effectively across different exhibition conditions, from large-format IMAX presentations to standard digital cinema systems. However, Lee Trier's perspective and the 3D conversion would change significantly in subsequent years. By 2013, the director publicly acknowledged that the conversion had been famously rushed and famously horrible, describing it as a gimmick to steal money from the audience. This candid assessment reflected growing industry awareness of the problems created by rushed post-conversion 3D work and the negative impact such processes could have on the overall viewing experience. The post-production phase ultimately extended well beyond the original schedule, as the various technical and creative challenges required additional time and resources to resolve satisfactorily. The complexity of integrating practical and digital elements, combined with the additional 3D conversion work, created a post-production timeline that tested the capabilities of all involved departments and vendors. Music. The musical score for Clash of the Titans represented a crucial creative element that required careful balance between epic orchestral grandeur and intimate character development. The mythological setting and heroic narrative demanded a musical approach that could support both spectacular action sequences and quieter emotional moments, creating an audio landscape that would enhance the film's storytelling while establishing its own memorable identity. The composer faced the challenging task of creating musical themes that could represent the complex relationships between gods, mortals, and monsters within the film's narrative structure. Each major character and faction required distinct musical identification that could evolve and interact throughout the story, creating leitmotifs that would guide audiences through the complex mythological landscape while supporting the emotional journey of the main characters. Zeus and the Divine Realm required musical themes that suggested both majesty and otherworldly power, using orchestral arrangements that could convey the overwhelming scale and authority of the gods. The composer employed traditional orchestral instruments in unconventional ways to create sounds that seemed to emanate from beyond normal human experience, using extended techniques and unique instrumental combinations to suggest divine presence and supernatural power. Perseus's heroic journey demanded a musical theme that could evolve from uncertainty and vulnerability to confidence and determination, reflecting the character's growth throughout the narrative. The composer developed a melodic line that could be stated simply during the character's introduction and gradually expanded and orchestrated more fully as Perseus accepted his divine heritage and heroic destiny. This musical development paralleled the character's emotional journey while providing audiences with a recognizable musical anchor throughout the complex plot. The antagonistic forces in the film, particularly Hades and the various monsters, required musical approaches that could suggest threat and otherworldly danger without becoming monotonously dark or overwhelming. The composer balanced dissonance and harmonic tension with melodic elements that could maintain musical interest while supporting the narrative requirements of each scene. The Kraken's appearances demanded particularly powerful musical support that could match the visual spectacle of the creature while maintaining dramatic coherence with the rest of the score. The orchestral arrangements required extensive planning and coordination with recording sessions that brought together large numbers of musicians under carefully controlled studio conditions. The complexity of the score demanded precise timing and coordination between different instrumental sections, requiring experienced musicians who could handle both the technical demands of the compositions and the expressive requirements of the dramatic material. The recording process involved multiple sessions across different studios, allowing for optimal acoustic conditions for different types of musical material. String sections, brass ensembles, woodwind groups, and percussion sections were recorded separately in many cases, enabling maximum control over the final mix while ensuring that each instrumental group could be captured with appropriate acoustic characteristics. The integration of the musical score with the film's sound effects and dialogue required sophisticated mixing techniques that could balance the different audio elements without sacrificing the impact of any component. The epic scale of many sequences demanded careful attention to frequency distribution and dynamic range to ensure that musical elements could coexist effectively with explosions, creature sounds, and human voices. The composer worked closely with Leitria throughout the creative process, ensuring that musical choices supported the director's creative vision while enhancing the emotional impact of individual scenes. This collaboration required flexibility and creative problem-solving, as the complex post-production process often demanded musical adjustments to accommodate changes in editing, visual effects, or pacing. The score's cultural influences reflected the international scope of the production and the mythological source material, incorporating musical elements that suggested both ancient Greek culture and contemporary cinematic conventions. The composer researched historical musical practices and instruments to inform modern orchestral arrangements that could suggest cultural authenticity while remaining accessible to contemporary audiences. Thematic development throughout the score required careful attention to musical continuity and variation, ensuring that repeated themes remain interesting while providing narrative coherence. The composer employed various orchestration techniques and harmonic progressions to present familiar melodic material in new contexts, supporting character development and plot progression through musical evolution. The integration of vocals and choral elements provided additional opportunities to suggest the epic and mythological aspects of the story, using human voices to create ethereal and otherworldly effects that complemented the instrumental arrangements. The choral work required coordination with specialized vocal groups experienced in film scoring techniques and capable of producing the precise tonal qualities required for mythological storytelling. Technological considerations played an important role in the scoring process, as the film's eventual 3D conversion and various exhibition formats required music that could maintain its impact across different presentation systems. The composer and sound engineers worked to ensure that musical dynamics and frequency distribution would translate effectively across various playback conditions, from large theatrical systems to home viewing environments. The commercial release of the soundtrack required additional consideration of musical material that could stand alone as listening experiences while maintaining connection to the film's narrative and emotional content. This dual-purpose demanded musical arrangements that could function both as dramatic underscore and as independent musical compositions worthy of separate attention. released. The release strategy for Clash of the Titans represented a sophisticated commercial campaign that evolved significantly as the production neared completion. The journey from initial release planning to final theatrical distribution involved numerous strategic decisions that would ultimately impact the film's commercial performance and cultural reception, demonstrating the complex calculations involved in launching a major Hollywood blockbuster in the evolving entertainment landscape of 2010. Theatrical. The original theatrical release plan established March 26, 2010, as the target date for Clash of the Titans, representing a strategic positioning within the competitive landscape of spring movie releases. This timing was designed to capture the lucrative pre-summer audience while avoiding direct competition with the major blockbusters typically scheduled for May and June release windows. The March release date also provided opportunities to build word-of-mouth momentum that could carry the film through the crucial summer movie season. However, the landscape of theatrical exhibition was undergoing dramatic transformation during the film's post-production period, primarily due to the unprecedented success of James Cameron's Avatar in late 2009 and early 2010. The phenomenal performance of Avatar in 3D formats created a seismic shift in industry perception of dimensional cinema, leading studios to reconsider their distribution strategies for major releases. This technological and commercial revolution would profoundly impact the release strategy for Clash of the Titans. The pivotal moment came on January 27, 2010, when the Heat Vision blog reported that Warner Bros. Had conducted a 3D conversion test of Clash of the Titans footage and found the results to be a roaring success. This development led to the studio's decision to convert the entire film to 3D format and adjust the release date to April 2, 2010. To accommodate the additional post-production work required for the conversion process. This strategic pivot represented a significant commercial gamble, as it required substantial additional investment in conversion technology while pushing the release into a more competitive April timeframe. However, Warner Bros. Calculated that the potential revenue benefits of 3D exhibition would more than compensate for these additional costs and risks. The decision reflected broader industry trends toward dimensional cinema and the premium ticket prices that 3D presentations could command. The announcement of the 3D conversion and release date change generated considerable media attention and industry speculation about the effectiveness of post-conversion 3D technology. Avatar had been filmed specifically for 3D presentation, using cutting-edge cameras and techniques developed specifically for dimensional cinema. In contrast, Clash of the Titans was being converted after principal photography had been completed using traditional 2D filming methods, raising questions about the quality and effectiveness of the conversion process. Warner Bros. Implemented a comprehensive marketing campaign that emphasized the epic scale and spectacular visual effects of Clash of the Titans, positioning it as a worthy successor to the dimensional cinema experience that Avatar had popularized. The campaign utilized traditional advertising channels including television spots, print advertisements, and online marketing while also pursuing innovative promotional strategies that could reach younger demographic groups increasingly important to blockbuster success. The international release strategy recognized the global appeal of mythological storytelling and the international scope of the production itself. The film's extensive locations shooting in Spain, Wales, Iceland, and Ethiopia provided natural promotional tie-ins for international markets, while the mythological source material offered universal themes that could resonate across different cultural contexts. Spain received particular attention in the international rollout, with the national premiere taking place on March 30 in Santa Cruz de Tenerife, the capital city of the Canary Islands where significant portions of the film had been shot. This premiere strategy capitalized on local pride and interest in the production while providing opportunities for media coverage that emphasized the film's international scope and production values. The Spanish premiere also served practical promotional purposes by generating early reviews and audience reactions that could be leveraged in other international markets. The event provided opportunities for caster and crew appearances that generated additional media coverage and helped establish momentum for the film's broader international release campaign. The theatrical exhibition strategy required coordination with cinema chains to ensure optimal screen allocation for both 2D and 3D presentations. The growing popularity of 3D cinema had created capacity constraints in many markets, as theaters needed to balance demand for dimensional presentations with the limited number of 3D-capable screens available. Warner Brothers worked closely with exhibition partners to maximize the availability of 3D presentations while ensuring adequate 2D screenings for audiences who preferred traditional viewing formats. The premium pricing structure for 3D presentations represented a significant component of the film's revenue strategy, as dimensional tickets typically commanded price premiums of $3.5 above standard 2D presentations. This pricing differential could substantially impact overall box office performance, potentially offsetting reduced attendance numbers with higher per-ticket revenues. However, the premium pricing also created consumer resistance that required careful management through marketing and promotional strategies. The opening weekend performance became a crucial indicator of the film's commercial viability, as contemporary blockbuster economics increasingly depended on strong initial box office results to generate momentum for sustained theatrical runs. The film industry's emphasis on opening weekend performance had intensified due to shortened theatrical windows and increased competition from home entertainment options, making the first few days of release disproportionately important to overall commercial success. IMAX presentations provided additional revenue opportunities and marketing benefits, as the large-format exhibition could showcase the film's epic scale and visual spectacle to maximum advantage. IMAX theaters typically commanded even higher ticket prices than standard 3D presentations while providing premium viewing experiences that could generate positive word-of-mouth and critical attention. The coordination of IMAX releases required additional technical work to optimize the film for large-format presentation systems. The theatrical marketing campaign emphasized the film's connection to classical mythology while highlighting its contemporary production values and spectacular visual effects. This dual approach attempted to appeal to both younger audiences drawn to action and spectacle and older viewers who might appreciate the mythological source material and classical storytelling elements. The marketing materials prominently featured the film's impressive cast, particularly Liam Neeson and Ralph Fiennes, whose dramatic credibility could attract adult audiences beyond a typical fantasy film demographic. Critical preview screenings and press junkets provided opportunities to generate early reviews and media coverage that could influence public perception and box office performance. The film industry's relationship with critics had become increasingly complex, as traditional media outlets faced declining influence while online reviewers and social media commentators gained prominence in shaping public opinion about new releases. The theatrical release campaign also coordinated with various promotional partnerships and tie-in products that could extend the film's marketing reach while generating additional revenue streams. These partnerships included video game adaptations, action figures, clothing lines, and food service promotions that could maintain public awareness of the film throughout its theatrical run and beyond. Home media. The home media strategy for Clash of the Titans reflected the rapidly evolving landscape of home entertainment technology and consumer preferences in 2010. The transition from standard definition to high-definition formats was essentially complete, but the emergence of 3D television technology and Blu-ray disc capabilities created new opportunities and challenges for maximizing the film's post-theatrical revenue potential. The DVD and Blu-ray release date was strategically scheduled for July 27, 2010, in the United States and Canada, with slightly earlier releases in Mexico, July 16, and the United Kingdom, July 26, followed by a later Japanese release on October 6. This staggered international release pattern reflected different market conditions and competitive factors in various territories while attempting to optimize revenue across all regions. The decision to release both standard DVD and high-definition Blu-ray versions simultaneously recognized the continued importance of DVD sales while capitalizing on the growing Blu-ray market among consumers with high-definition televisions and players. The Blu-ray format offered significant advantages for a visually spectacular film like Clash of the Titans, providing superior video quality and audio capabilities that could better showcase the film's production values and visual effects work. Reviews and facts. Number 1. Clash of the Titans is a 2010 action fantasy film and remake of the 1981 film of the same name produced by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, the rights to which had been acquired by Warner Brothers in 1996 through its purchase of Turner. The story is very loosely based on the Greek myth of Perseus, an Australian-American production directed by Louis Leterrier from a screenplay by Travis Busham, Phil Hay, and Matt Manfredi, starring Sam Worthington, Gemma Arterton, Mads Mikkelsen, Alexa Davalos, Ralph Fiennes, and Liam Neeson. The film was originally set for standard release on March 26, 2010. However, it was later announced that the film would be converted to 3D and was released on April 2, 2010. Clash of the Titans grossed $493 million worldwide, though it received generally negative reviews from critics and received 2 Golden Raspberry Awards nominations. The film's success led to a sequel, Wrath of the Titans, released in March 2012. After defeating the Titans, the gods divided the world among themselves. Zeus took the skies, Poseidon the seas, and Hades, deceived by Zeus, was left to rule the underworld. Zeus created the mortals, whose worship maintained the gods' immortality. Over time, however, some mortals began to defy their creators. The demigod Perseus was conceived by Zeus and the human queen Danae during the siege of her husband King Acrisius at Mount Olympus. Upon discovering the conception, an enraged Acrisius orders the queen's execution and locks the newborn child in a chest with her corpse. In Zeus' retaliation, a lightning bolt strikes the king and severely deforms him. The king then throws the chest into the sea. Thereafter, Perseus is found and raised by the fisherman Spiros and his wife Marmara. Years later, Perseus and his family watch as soldiers from the city of Argos destroy the statue of Zeus, declaring war on the gods. The Furies are then unleashed and slaughter the soldiers. Hades appears and destroys the family's fishing vessel. Spiros and his family drown. Perseus is the only survivor. Found by another group of soldiers, Perseus is brought before King Cepheus and Queen Cassiopeia. They are celebrating their campaign against the gods, while their daughter Princess Andromeda disapproves of her parents leading the city's rebellion. When Cassiopeia begins boasting of her daughter to the gods, the revelry is interrupted by Hades, who exposes Perseus' lineage to Zeus and rapidly ages Cassiopeia. He threatens to unleash the Kraken, a sea monster born from his flesh, against Argos, unless Andromeda is offered as a sacrifice. Perseus meets Io, a mysterious woman cursed with immortality, who confirms his origin. Perseus, Io, and the King's Guard led by Draco journey to the Stygian witches, seeking a way to defeat the Kraken. To help his son, Zeus tries to give Perseus a sword forged on Olympus, which he refuses. Soon after, they are attacked by a decrepit Acrisius, now known as Calibos, who was corrupted by Hades, and sent to kill Perseus. During the fight, Draco severs Calibos' hand, forcing him to retreat to a desert where his blood from the hand stump conjures giant scorpions which attack the group. They are rescued by a band of jinn, desert sorcerers who tame the remaining scorpions and lend their aid to Perseus and his group. They arrive at the lair of the Stygian witches, who are forced to reveal a weapon to defeat the Kraken, the head of the Gorgon Medusa, who resides in the underworld. Upon arrival, Perseus and his remaining companions enter Medusa's temple lair, while Io remains outside. Medusa kills everyone except Perseus, who finally manages to behead her by using the underside of his shield to see her with his back turned. As he leaves the temple, Calibos appears and fatally stabs Io. Perseus and Calibos fight, ending the battle after Perseus picks up the Olympian sword and kills Calibos, restoring his human form at the last moment. As Io lies dying, she urges Perseus to save Andromeda and Argos. The winged horse Pegasus arrives and takes Perseus back to Argos as Hades, having manipulated Zeus and the gods and earning their trust, releases the Kraken. Perseus arrives and exposes Medusa's head to the Kraken, which gradually petrifies and crumbles. Procopion, a cult leader who worships Hades, attempts to kill Perseus, but Cepheus intervenes and both of them are then crushed by the Kraken's falling claw. Hades confronts Perseus, but the latter, invoking Zeus, hurls his sword at Hades, forcing him back to the underworld. Perseus rescues Andromeda, who asks Perseus to rule Argos by her side as king, but he declines. Perseus later refuses another offer of godhood from Zeus instead. Zeus revives Io, reuniting her and Perseus. Sam Worthington as Perseus, a fisherman who finds out he is a demigod, as the son of Zeus, king of the gods, and the mortal Danae. Perseus goes on a quest for the head of Medusa in order to stop the gods from destroying Argos. The ancient Greeks regarded Perseus as one of their greatest heroes, as well as the founder of Mycenae. The film adapts elements of the classical Greek myths around Perseus, but does so loosely. The mythological Perseus was sent to collect the head of Medusa by King Polydex so Polydex could force Danae into marriage during Perseus' absence. Perseus went on this quest unaided by companions, but with help from the gods Hermes and Athena. Otto Farrant as young Perseus, Liam Neeson as Zeus, king of the gods, as well as the god of the sky, lightning and thunder. Zeus created man but has become disappointed with their lack of respect. Ralph Fiennes as Hades, god of the underworld and the dead, a brother of Zeus. Hades resents his brother for him, Hades, being appointed lord of the underworld, and plots to destroy his brother. Gemma Arterton as Io, a mortal woman who once refused the advances of a god and was cursed with agelessness. She has watched over Perseus and acts as his guide. The character is loosely inspired by the mythological figure of Io, whom Zeus coveted. In order to keep Io safe from the wrath of his wife, Zeus turned Io into a cow. The mythological Io and Perseus never met as they lived hundreds of years apart, with Io actually a distant ancestor of Perseus. Alexida follows as Andromeda, a princess of Argos, who was sacrificed to the Kraken after her mother foolishly boasts about Andromeda's beauty. In classical Greek mythology, Andromeda was a princess of Ethiopia who was sacrificed to the sea monster Cetus. Jason Fleming as King Acrisius, a mortal king who led a revolt against the gods. As punishment, Zeus impregnated Acrisius' wife, Queen Danae, and turned Acrisius into the deformed creature Calibos. The character is based on the mythological king Acrisius, who was Danae's father and thus Perseus' maternal grandfather. The mythological Acrisius attempted to murder his daughter because an oracle had foretold that Acrisius would one day be killed by his own grandson. Acrisius' transformation into Calibos is not based on mythological sources, but is instead inspired by the character from the original film. Mads Mikkelsen as Draco, captain of the Royal Guard of Argus who accompanies Perseus. Liam Cunningham as Solon, an experienced soldier from Argus who accompanies Perseus. Hans Matheson as Ixes, a soldier from Argus who accompanies Perseus. Nicholas Holt as Eusebius, a young and devout soldier from Argus who accompanies Perseus. Ashraf Barham as Ozil, a hunter who joins Perseus' journey, brother to Kukuk. Mulal Dacre as Kukuk, Ozal's brother and a hunter who joins Perseus' journey. Ian White as Sheiks Ulauman, leader of the jinn humanoid sorcerers who live in the desert and use black magic to extend their lifespan. The jinn do not appear in ancient Greek mythology, but are creatures from Arabic myths instead. Luke Treadaway as Procopian, a doomsday prophet who urges the Argives to worship the gods. Pete Postlethwaite and Elizabeth McGovern appear in the opening scenes of the film as Spyro and Marmara, who find the infant Perseus and become his adoptive parents. Both characters do not appear in classical Greek mythology, where Perseus was instead raised by his mother Danae, who did not die during their voyage in the coffin. Vincent Regan and Polly Walker play King Cepheus and Queen Cassiopeia, the arrogant rulers of Argus and parents of Andromeda. In the original myths, Cepheus and Cassiopeia were king and queen of Ethiopia instead. Rory McCann and Martin McCann make appearances as Bello and Phaedrus, two soldiers from Argus who initially accompany Perseus on his journey. Caius Scodelario plays Peshet, handmaiden to Princess Andromeda. Luke Evans plays Apollo, god of music, the sun, dance and archery and a son of Zeus. Danny Houston and Alexander Siddig appear briefly as Poseidon, god of the sea, and Hermes, god of roads and travelers. Ross Mullen, Robin Berry and Graham Hughes play the three Stygian witches, who are based on the Graeae Pemphido, Ino and Dino. Supermodels Ignis Dean and Natalia Vodianova make brief appearances as Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. and the monstrous Medusa, one of the fearsome Gorgons, respectively. Isabella Lyko has a non-speaking role as Athena, the goddess of wisdom and knowledge. The Clash of the Titans remake project started in 2002 under producer Adam Schroeder and writers John Glenn and Travis Wright. They wanted to drop the cheesy chessboard manipulation of characters by the gods. In the Wright, Glenn version of Clash, various pantheons were mixed together. The main villain was the Sumerian sea goddess of death and destruction, Tiamat. Citation needed. Perseus was originally kidnapped by an avatar of an unidentified Chthonian earth goddess, who planned to have him married to Andromeda so as to develop better relations with humanity. The earth goddess and Perseus proceed to fall in love. Zeus prepared to engage in war with Tiamat, taking the aids of other gods, such as Thoth, Marduk, Yahweh and Osiris. A high priest named Phantasos starts a cult of Tiamat that quickly conquers the city. Andromeda was originally a promiscuous spoiled princess who possessed various male sex slaves. Though the mixing of mythologies and the Perseus earth goddess romance was abandoned, the concept of a goddess enraged at arrogant humans and demanding a sacrifice and the cult of the evil god, changed from Tiamat to Hades, was retained into the final production. Producer Basil Iwanek revived the project in 2006 with a rewrite by Travis Busham, a fan of the original, who intended the script to be darker and more realistic. Lawrence Kasdan and director Stephen Norrington signed on in 2007. Kasdan gave the script another rewrite from the Busham version, but Norrington was unsure about his direction for the project because he did not grow up with the original. Lee Trier, who did, contacted Norrington through their shared agent about replacing him. By June 2008, Lee Trier joined the project and Warner Brothers greenlit the film. Lee Trier noted the original Clash of the Titans inspired the climax of his previous film The Incredible Hulk, a battle in a burnt-down courtroom with temple-like columns, and has compared modern superheroes to Greek mythology. Writers Phil Hay and Matt Manfredi took over the script during July 2008 and used Busham's draft as a starting point. They focused on the mythology and telling the story through Lee Trier's eyes. Hay and Manfredi had to rewrite the script in less than a year using a very active process. Lee Trier sought Ray Harryhausen's involvement, and reunited with Hulk concept artist Aaron Sims, who had already been working on Clash of the Titans with Norrington. Lee Trier, during an interview, revealed that he is a big fan of Masami Kurumada's Saint Seiya manga, also known as Knights of the Zodiac, and its anime adaptation. He specifically cited the armor that the gods wear in his film remake as a sign of homage and respect to Saint Seiya. Masami Kurumada, the author of Saint Seiya, was even asked to collaborate with the production team on poster designs. Sam Worthington did not wear sandals while filming. He instead painted toes on his sports shoes so he could perform the stunts better, according to actress Emma Thompson in a 2014 interview on The Graham Norton Show. Sitting alongside Luke Evans, Hugh Grant and Lenny Kravitz, she almost made an accidental uncredited cameo in the movie while visiting her friend Liam Neeson on the set. Thompson, who'd been filming Nanny McPhee in The Big Bang in an adjacent studio, went to visit Neeson during a break, just as Neeson was about to shoot a scene with Ralph Fiennes and Danny Houston. Unable to exit the set fast enough as the cameras began to roll, Thompson, in her clumsy Nanny McPhee costume, had to hide behind Houston's throne during the take so she would not be picked up by the cameras. For the 2D to 3D conversion, Lee Trier approached the studio early on about a 3D conversion, but it was expensive and very new technology. After Avatar, the studio put pressure on Lee Trier to convert the film. He was worried because of his previous concerns but was convinced after seeing the VOD conversion process. Lee Trier considered the 3D conversion to improve the viewing experience, and states that it should not be seen as a gimmick. In 2013, Lee Trier said of the 3D conversion, it was famously rushed and famously horrible. It was absolutely horrible. The 3D, nothing was working, it was just a gimmick to steal money from the audience. I'm a good boy and I rolled with the punches and everything, but it's not my movie. Filming began April 27, 2009, near London, at Shepperton Studios, and also at Pinewood Studios and at Longcross Studios, near Chertsey, in Surrey. Filming also took place in Wales, the Canary Islands, Spain, primarily at the World Heritage Site, Tide National Park in Tenerife, Maspalomas Dunes, Gran Canaria, and Tamanfaya National Park in Lanzarote. Aerial photography was conducted in Iceland and Ethiopia. Filming of volcano scenes at the Harriet Hole and Dino Urich slate quarry in Wales wrapped at the end of July. This slate quarry has also been used for locations for Willow and Street Fighter. Bo, Athena's mechanical owl in the original 1981 film, makes a cameo appearance in this remake and its sequel. Clash of the Titans was originally set for standard release on March 26, 2010. The Heat Vision blog reported on January 27, 2010, that after a 3D conversion test of the film, which Warner Bros. Found to be a roaring success, the film would be converted to 3D and would premiere on April 2, 2010. The national premiere in Spain took place on March 30 in Santa Cruz de Tenerife, the capital city of the Canary Islands. Clash of the Titans was released on DVD and Blu-ray combo pack on July 16, Mexico, July 26, UK, July 27, USA, and Canada, October 6, Japan. 2010. A 3D Blu-ray version of the film was also released in a combo pack with the 2D version, DVD, and digital copy. Clash of the Titans received generally negative reviews, with most criticism directed at its flat characters and its use of 3D, but received praise for its visual effects and action sequences. Review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes reports that 27% of critics have given the film a positive review based on 266 reviews. The average rating is 4.3. The website's critical consensus states, an obviously affectionate remake of the 1981 original, Louis Leterrier's Clash of the Titans doesn't offer enough visual thrills to offset the deficiencies of its script. On Metacritic, the film is assigned a weighted average score of 39 out of 100, based on 37 reviews from mainstream critics, indicating generally unfavorable reviews. Even before release, the film attracted some negative attention for its original tagline, "Titans will clash," although the trailers, edited to match the bird and the worm by the used, were praised. In his review for the Chicago Sun-Times, Roger Ebert gave the film 3 stars out of 4, stating, "I don't say it's good cinema, although I recognize the craftsmanship that went into it. I don't say it's good acting, when the men have so much facial hair they all look like Liam Neeson. I like the energy, the imagination, the silliness." Richard Corliss of Time could understand why the film received negative reviews, but found it a full-throttle action-adventure, played unapologetically straight. He dismissed other critics' complaints, writing that the film is very watchable in 2D, that other critics were influenced by nostalgia for the original, and that 15 seconds of Bo is enough for his tastes. Colin Covert gave the film a mildly positive review, stating the film was all flash, trash, and crash, a tasty hunk of baloney, and mindless yet shamelessly thrilling. He said Worthington had a Shatner-esque heaviness about him, and found that all the laughs came from the fact that the heavyweight actors were slumming through their roles. Owen Gleiberman of Entertainment Weekly gave the film a bah, writing, "The new Clash isn't the cynical rehash, it has the flavor of a certain pre-CGI innocence." James Berardinelli gave it a mixed review, concluding that Clash of the Titans is a flawed but mildly entertaining regurgitation of Greek mythological elements, but it's also an example of how poorly executed 3D can hamstring a would-be spectacle. Peter Travers of Rolling Stone awarded the film 1 star out of 4, stating the film is a sham, with good actors going for the paycheck and using beards and heavy makeup to hide their shame. In a review for the Chicago Tribune, Turan complained that the film is worse in 3D. He went on further to explain that the action scenes are more of a distraction than an enhancement, with the battle scenes being cluttered and harder to follow rather than exciting. Claudia Pug for USA Today wrote that the film's most outstanding achievement is the ability to be both chaotic and dull. Justification for her opinion came from the frantic action sequences and muddled special effects. Dan Coys blamed the director for making a muddled disappointment instead of a camp classic that could have endured for generations. He almost accused Leterrier of not knowing how to direct an action scene, and that the film lacked wit and flair. David Stratton also criticized the film's action scenes, suggesting to Lee Trier, check out your local video store for something by Kurosawa, or almost any movie with sword fight scenes, to see how it's done. The film was nominated for Worst Prequel, Remake, Rip-Off or Sequel and Worst Eye-Gouging Misuse of 3D at the 31st Golden Raspberry Awards, but lost to Sex and the City 2 and The Last Airbender, respectively. Clash of the Titans earned $61,235,105 in its opening weekend in 3,777 theaters in the United States and Canada, not including Thursday previews. The movie was #1 for 2 weeks in a row, edging out Date Night and the previous winner, How to Train Your Dragon. Clash of the Titans made $163,214,888 domestically, as of July 22, 2010, and $330 million overseas, as of September 19, 2010, for a worldwide total of $493,214,888. On the all-time worldwide chart it ranks 80th and in North America it is below number 100. Namco Bandai Games and Warner Bros. Interactive Entertainment released a video game adaptation of the movie on July 27, 2010, on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. To coincide with the film's home video release, it was originally planned for release in March 2010. Production of the sequel, Wrath of the Titans, directed by Jonathan Liebesman, began on March 23, 2011. Sam Worthington, Ralph Fiennes and Liam Neeson reprised their roles and the film was released on March 30, 2012. In November 2011, Warner Bros. Hired Dan Mazza and David Leslie Johnson, who wrote Wrath of the Titans, to write and develop a sequel, Revenge of the Titans, but it was cancelled. Among die-hard supporters of Donald Trump, the phrase "release the Kraken" has come to refer to evidence for massive voter fraud in the 2020 U.S. presidential election. Number 2. At the core of my cinematic soul, I remain an optimist. I believe that movies can still educate, enlighten, entertain, and a viewer can even have, fun at the movies. That's right. It's possible. Sadly, it's become quite the challenge to maintain this approach to cinema when studio heads seem to assume what I will want to see, and how close I want to see it, on the silver screen. Such is the case when I heard a remake of 1981's Clash of the Titans, the Greek mythology epic, was greenlit. Of course, they'll call it a reimagining to distance themselves from a film that is nestled in nostalgia for many or brushed off as kitsch by others. I groaned as the idea of a whatever you wanna call it, since the original had gobsmacked my 9-year-old self. So, initially, I groaned, but then I thought, if they could maintain the charm and spectacle while updating the special effects, well then, we might have something here. Well, we do have something here, but I highly doubt it would pique the interest of anyone immersed in the classic myths, nor will it appeal to those who like to see awesome CGI lined with heart, or at least, a brain. Sadly, director Louis Leterrier, The Incredible Hulk, prefers dazzle over depth. He obviously believes viewers will be drawn in by visual delights, paying no mind to lame dialogue, poorly conceived characters and weak 3D. The film opens amid the stars in space as the camera swerves around constellations while a female narrator delivers Greek Mythology 101. She speaks of how Zeus, god of the heavens, and Poseidon, god of the seas, are brothers, and how Zeus betrayed their other brother, Hades, leaving him as god of the underworld. Zeus winds up demanding that the humans he created worship him while Hades feeds off the fear of man. Nice god. This Zeus, Hades, Ralph Fiennes, has had it with the underworld and demands Zeus, Liam Neeson, allow him to let loose on the arrogant and ungrateful humans. Zeus knows that man now rejects him despite the fact that he gave them life and sees how they need to be put in their place. Despite the disapproval of the rest of the Olympians, he relents to Hades, unaware of his own nefarious plans. Why are all-knowing gods rarely ever all-knowing? Meanwhile, a fisherman named Spyros, Pete Postlewaite, finds a baby boy alive and well, adrift at sea in a coffin. He and his wife raise the baby as their own, calling him Perseus. As a young boy of about 12, Perseus looks to the heavens, well aware of his upbringing and feeling like he has no family of his own despite the love Spyros and his family has bestowed upon him. 12 years later, Perseus, now a strapping Sam Worthington who somehow manages to keep a buzz cut and specific amount of stubble throughout the story, now has a sister and works with his family on their fishing boat. Unable to catch any fish, Spyros becomes spiteful to the gods and discards his wife's wishes that they should just be thankful for the lives they are given. We see the camera hold on Perseus' brooding face as his father proclaims that someday someone must take a stand against the gods. This is just one of many foreboding exposition lines that are thrown out. It proves that the writers clearly do not trust the viewers to discover on their own what will become obvious. The tempest of Perseus' rising anger erupts when his family is drowned at sea by a careless Hades, becoming victims of the war that has started between the gods and man. It is here that we are reminded of Worthington's limited acting ability. You don't surface from the depths after desperately trying to pull your family out of a sinking ship and have the energy to cry to the sky. It would be more dramatic for us to see him barely hold on to the floating boat debris. Hades lays down an ultimatum before the city of Argos, giving them 10 days till an eclipse. Once the eclipse hits, if the lovely Princess Andromeda, Alexida follows, isn't sacrificed to the Kraken, the Leviathan offspring of Hod as a broken bar. Well, life goes to hell. There's no explanation as to how he has control over the sun, but we're not meant to ask such questions. Thus, the timeless tale of a beauty quelling the beast goes back to ancient myth. Too bad there is no time taken to make us care for the people in jeopardy. Those that have lines are so arrogant and prideful that we could care less if they're destroyed, while panning shots of dirty villagers caring for their family fail to move us. Perseus is found, thrust into this drama, and it's revealed to him and everyone else that he is the demigod, part man, part god, son of Zeus. Seeing that he has no love for the gods, he is none too thrilled at this revelation, which is confirmed by a mysterious priestess named Gemma Arterton, who supposedly has been watching over Perseus since birth, and she appears only now. She tells him that Hades will weaken if the Kraken is killed. King Capheus, Vincent Regan, wanting to save his daughter, demands Perseus take a group of soldiers and defeat the Kraken. Perseus agrees, not out of a desire to save Andromeda or the people of Argos, but out of straightforward revenge. So much for nobility and character in a hero. The rest of the film is a droll update to the classic tale of Perseus as he and his sandal crew make their way to the Stygian witches in order to find out how to kill a Kraken. It's a journey that gets so muddled inside exposition that at midpoint, I had to remind myself of this. Along the way, they make time for Draco, Mads Mikkelsen, playing one of the only intriguing characters, a career warrior, to teach Perseus the Speed 101 version of the Way of the Sword. There's also a quick introduction of Pegasus, the lone black flying horse in a meadow of beautiful white ones. We know that this horse eventually becomes Perseus' steed, and it's fitting that he is red into black since this Perseus is all emo and angst-filled. Oh, and somewhere in here it's also revealed that long ago Zeus basically raped Perseus' birth mother. Again, nice god. This Zeus, her husband, wound up becoming an oily-looking gargoyle man named Calibos. Jason Fleming, who gets secretly powered up by Hades, told you he was nefarious, and has it in for the son of Zeus. Calibos lacks the menace that used from the character in the original. The only thing oozing out of this Calibos is acidic blood that turns into giant scorpions. They snip and stab at our heroes, but it's okay, 'cause in no time they'll be domesticated and saddled as transport, since time is a-wasting. And what of the infamous battle with the evil Gorgon witch Medusa, which freaked me out as a child? It's turned into a video game here. There's no menace or intensity as she slithers and rattles and cackles in her lair. I'm sure this whole sequence would be 10 times cooler on an Xbox or PS3 console. So, with my windy and somewhat snarky summation of this epic fail epic, it's easy to see how hard it is for me to maintain any hope for a well-executed movie in this genre. It feels like this is just one of many films that have tried to capture the fervor behind the Lord of the Rings trilogy and even the testosterone-infused 300, but this doesn't even come close to those films, not even in visual style. For the life of me, I could not figure out why Neeson and Fiennes, a Schindler's List reunion, look like Appalachian mountain men in gaudy glam rock outfits. These are gods, right? What do they need shiny armor for which they only wear while on Mount Olympus? They're all powerful. They can walk around naked anywhere they want. I could go on and on, but I know my many questions will never be answered. Since it has 3D slapped on the ads and posters, audiences will flock to it. Little do they know that the 3D here literally was slapped on at the end of post-production. This was not filmed in 3D like Avatar and it shows. The 3D is simply unimpressive and actually distracting instead of enhancing. No big surprise since it was tacked just like Tim Burton's recent film. Ask yourself why and hopefully you'll come to the realization that studios think you are stupid and know that 3D equals boffo box office. They don't care about artfully rendering 3D environment and realistically placing the actors in it. They just care about consumers paying a higher price. And if you have to see this movie, you'll be paying a price regardless, but just see it in 2D and keep your extra $6. There will also be plenty of families clamoring to see this remake. Parents, don't let this be your child's first exposure to the Greek myths. Watch the original with them and see how they do. Then go read some Greek mythology with them and figure out why those stories were told. Much can be learned about humanity in those stories. Those are lessons you won't find in a CGI-infused blockbuster. It's uncertain what fondness or nostalgia Lee Trier and crew have for the original film, since this film lacks the whimsy and heart apparent in that gods and monsters adventure. Maybe there's a subtle hint in a quick scene in which Boo, the mechanized owl, was completely discarded, just like anyone with a soft spot for the original. With the advances in technology, I'm not opposed to change or upgrades if something amazing can be seen on the screen that still has substance. But a cool-looking Kraken does not make a cool movie viewing experience, and this clash feels more like a drawn-out dirge than a magical mythic tour. Number 3 movie review being The Human Son of Zeus is no picnic. Want proof? Just ask Perseus. Because the king of the gods mischievously dallied with his unsuspecting mortal mother, Perseus starts life as an outcast. Mother and baby are sealed in a coffin-like funeral barge and set adrift on the sea to die. Fortunately, the infant's half-god side helps him survive long enough to be rescued by a kind passing fisherman who adopts Perseus, loves him and raises him as his own. But then, tragedy strikes again. Perseus has to watch as his adopted family is murdered by Hades, lord of the underworld, when Zeus and company decide that the island people of Argos have failed to show the gods proper respect. To top things off, when the humans that Perseus lives among discover that he, now in his 20s, is actually a demigod himself, they want to take their myriad frustrations with the gods out on him. But Perseus doesn't complain. Instead, when Hades demands the sacrifice of Argos' lovely princess, Andromeda, Perseus volunteers to face the threat head-on. He recruits a hodgepodge force of staunch fighters and an ageless female guardian named Io. Together they battle their way past giant scorpions, gruesome witches and a deformed monstra, among other things. The hero's plan? Well, once they breach the gates of the underworld, they simply have to behead the snake-haired Medusa, save the princess from a 200-foot-tall monstrosity called the Kraken, and defeat the god of the underworld himself. It's all in a demigod's day's work. Positive elements: the bonds between Perseus and his adoptive family are strong. The old fisherman tells his son, "The love we have for you is the thing that gods and kings fight over." And later, when asked about his plans, Perseus gestures toward his loved ones and states, "I have everything I need, right here." Self-sacrifice is at the heart of Perseus' journey. When his family is killed by Hades, Perseus initially sets his heart on vengeance. But with time, and in light of the bravery displayed by his fellow soldiers, his rage is transformed into a redemptive desire to save humanity. And when Zeus offers Perseus sanctuary, he tells the god who is his biological father, "After Allah, I'd rather die in the mud with these men than live as a god." No surprise, then, that those battling beside Perseus willingly put their lives on the line for him and for each other. Although the king and queen of Argos are self-centered and vain, Princess Andromeda is not. When soldiers return from battle, she ministers to their needs. She also takes bread to the hungry amid the city-wide upheaval. When Andromeda hears Hades demand that she be sacrificed to appease the capricious gods and save Argos, she readily agrees to give her life for her people. Spiritual elements. Much of the movie revolves around spiritual-themed intrigue and the conflict between the Greek gods and the humans they often treat badly. We see these deities in their heavenly, mountaintop court of Olympus, and we watch the power struggle between Zeus and his brother Hades, who has been relegated to ruling the dark underworld of the dead. It's said that Zeus created humanity and that the gods maintained their power through those mortals' prayers. So when the people of Argos begin to offer more criticism than supplication, it's a problem that must be dealt with. Humanity's rebellion cannot be tolerated because it's a threat to the gods' reign. And so Zeus agrees to Hades' plan of unleashing torment on humanity to remind them of the order of things and turn them back into our arms. After all, there's nothing like unremitting tragedy to force frail humans back into a posture of humility, dependence and petition, right? Magic and terrible curses play a huge role in the tale. For instance, the female guardian Io says that she once refused the sexual advances of a god, and he responded to her by cursing her with agelessness. Similarly, Medusa is said to have once been a beautiful woman who fell victim to a curse by the goddess Athena that turned her into a twisted half-woman, half-snake, and the Kraken. He was apparently animated out of a chunk of Hades' own flesh. As for life and death, the gods also have some authority over that, too, as Zeus resurrects a dead woman, though many of the gods prove to be selfish, petty and cruel. Perseus' adoptive mother nevertheless espouses a thankful attitude, saying, "The gods gave us life, for that we must be thankful." Sexual romantic content to punish a rebellious king. Zeus transforms into a doppelganger currency of the man and beds his wife. We see their bare shoulders after the fact. Io tells a story of a human Medusa being forcibly taken by Poseidon. Io wears a dress that exposes one shoulder and reveals quite a bit of leg during battle. Medusa wears a bikini-style top. Violent content though mostly bloodless. The titanic action of Clash nevertheless involves a constant barrage of swordplay and worse. Soldiers battle giant scorpions that impale and hurl folks about with their oversized tails and claws. Medusa transforms men into stone statues with her gaze, crushing one with her snake tail and shooting another through the chest with an arrow. When she's eventually killed, we see the headless stump of her neck before she falls into a fiery lake. The monster Calibos slashes and kills several men, and in one quick scene it appears to rip an unfortunate victim in half. A warrior cuts Calibos' hand off, after which the appendage crawls about and grows into a giant scorpion. In fact, the monster's dismemberment is the main exception to the film's mostly bloodless norm. As its arm bleeds, the dark liquid gives birth to lice-like insects. Calibos also bites Perseus' arm, leaving gruesome-looking teeth marks in the man's flesh. Gods and monsters also wreak destruction on a bigger scale. Zeus unleashes lightning blasts from the heavens, and Hades transforms into a swarm of giant bat-winged demons that tear into crowds of humans. Hades magically morphs into a swirling black whirlwind that sucks dozens of men to their deaths. And when this god of the underworld touches the face of the Queen of Argos, she withers into an emaciated husk. Finally, the dreaded Kraken flails about with his enormous tentacles and claws, demolishing buildings, courtyards and crowds. Conclusion. In a coming Zune.net interview, Clash of the Titans screenwriter Phil Hay said that the writing team's goal for this new version of the story was to make a fun adventure movie that doesn't take itself too seriously, but within itself, takes everything seriously. And that's a pretty accurate representation of what ended up on the big screen. The remake doesn't take many cues from the 1981 original that featured stop-motion magic from special effects genius Ray Harryhausen. Instead, this reboot has been given a thorough facelift. The first flick's camp factor has been tamped down a bit. The owl gets only a brief nod while its new Millennium CGI has been buffed to a polished sheen. The result is an old-fashioned, sword and sandals matinee adorned with the latest in big-budget bells and whistles. Along with that injection of special effects, however, comes an Olympic-sized load of digitized violence. There may not be gallons of fake blood, but there is no shortage of death in just about any way you might imagine. Stabbings and slashings, impalings and dismemberment are but a few of the violent ends men and monsters meet. It all adds up to 118 minutes of bombastic Mount Olympus posturing and man versus God fist shaking. And it's that latter conflict that ends up being Clash of the Titans' Achilles heel, I think. The mythological power struggles between sibling gods Zeus and Hades are little more than dramatic fodder for this whiz-bang actioner. So I'm really not worried about people suddenly deciding they want to rethink Zeus' religious relevancy, an unlikely outcome given that capricious god's character. That said, I am aware of how the film could conceivably reinforce wrong notions about the God of the Bible and viewers who believe he's somehow akin to these dysfunctional deities. He's not, of course, but just like Perseus and his beleaguered human friends, we here in the real world must labor at times to make sense of inexplicable tragedies. And it can be tempting to toy with the idea that maybe God has it in for us, say broken bars, as the case with the false gods on display here, add in heaping helpings of witchy prophesies, ancient curses and black magic, and you've got a Kraken-sized spiritual counterfeit posing as a cinematic confection. After spending more than 2 decades touring, directing, writing and producing for Christian theater and radio, most recently for Adventures in Odyssey, which he still contributes to, Bob joined the Plugged-In staff to help us focus more heavily on video games. He is also one of our primary movie reviewers,